This is Smiles TV. Welcome to the best community affairs program in the Midwest. You're watching Smiles TV. You know what? We have a magnificent broadcast. We have some people who came in surprisingly, and it's going to be a great show. But we're going to start off with What's on Your Mind with Dr. Dez. You remember Dr. Desarie Holmes, our resident psychologist. Dr. Dez has quite a bit on her mind, and we're going to talk with you about trauma. Also, remember that on November 29th at 5:15, there will be a tribute in honor of the late Dick Gregory in East St. Louis, Illinois. And it's going to be held at the East St. Louis City Hall. We have Ron Gregory who came in. He came in with a friend. And you really don't want to miss this broadcast. Remember, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. He was crucified and buried, and he rose on the third day. Confess with your mouth that he is Lord. Believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and thou shalt be saved. Stay tuned for more Smiles. Welcome back to Smiles. There is a lot going on in our world today. A lot going on in the city of East St. Louis, the state, the country, and the world. There's trauma all over. And believe it or not, you may be impacted and just don't even realize it. Let's talk to Dr. Dez about trauma and how it impacts our culture and how it may even impact you as an individual. Dr. Dez, thank you again.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm blessed, thank you, and how are you?
I'm well.
And you're not laughing anymore when I call you that resident. Yes, you are. She
I
has
did
to
it
laugh. She is serious. She is a resident psychologist, okay? She just, she's a humble being, and she just doesn't like to be put on a pedestal like that. But we're going to talk about trauma.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was just thinking and reading the other day about the horrific incident that happened in the church. Where the guy went in and just started shooting people.
Right.
That has to present trauma just from us watching it. But tell us the definition, the official definition of trauma and what it really means.
So and you're absolutely right, because that is classified as a very traumatic event. So the definition of trauma is an individual trauma results from an event, a series of events, set of circumstances experienced by an individual, physically, emotionally, harmful or life-threatening, that has lasting effects. And the effects are adverse effects, so they can be negative effects. And it affects the individual's functioning. It affects their individual well-being, mentally, physically, socially, psychologically, and all of that. When you combine all of that together, can have a very negative outcome for that individual.
Okay, and I have to stop you because, and I don't remember if we talked about even the trauma from way back, even slavery days, and how that trauma could be passed down. So do you still consider that to be traumatic to us today?
Oh, definitely. Okay. You don't have to be the one to have experienced the event, because the 3 E's of trauma is it's the event, it's the experience, and it's the effect of it. Okay. So when you talk about the event of, say, the Middle Passage, slavery, that happened, and some people will say, well, that happened hundreds of years ago. You know, you just need to get over it. You know, and some would even say that it's passed down within our DNA. You know, but when you hear that story, how that impacts you as an African American, you know, that can still have some very devastating and lasting effects. And we do still continue to see what those effects are.
That's right.
You know, and so it doesn't always have to be, and I think that's the thing that people need to understand. You can have an event like a hurricane or a tornado, and certainly we have had several hurricanes going on recently, right? You don't have to be the one that was actually involved in that hurricane. When you continue to see things over and over again being played out on television, for instance, a really good one is the 9/11 event that occurred.
Right.
You know, every time you saw those planes going into,
and they showed it over and over again.
Exactly.
Right.
And so here you are, you're looking at that and you're watching that. Well, you might not have been the person that was actually there in New York or Washington, D.C. or in Pennsylvania, but every time that you see that, that does something to you. And so people really need to understand that how you interpret that, your own constitution, your own level of resiliency. You know, some people have a more sensitive constitution. All of that is going to play into a person's, their own individual constitution, their own individual makeup. You know, you have some people that are more sensitive, their level of resiliency, how resilient an individual is, what their own background is. But it also comes down to how the event occurred, when the event occurred. You're looking at the frequency of an event. So all of those things, and then also where it occurred. You know, when, for instance, the last time we met, we had talked about the ACE studies, the adverse childhood experiences, and we had talked about that. And so really that's when people really began to really understand the adverse effects of trauma that occurs in your childhood. Because think about it, you are still, your brain is still developing, so you can have arrested development emotionally, socially, psychologically, you know, spiritually, because it's at that point to where the trauma occurred, and that's at that point where it intersects with you.
Okay, so looking at everything that you just described, and many of us are not equipped, medically speaking, and we don't have the education to know how to deal with such trauma. What are some tips that you can give our audience in terms of coping with things that occur that are totally out of our hands?
So before we even do that, just back up a little bit, because let me give you some basic information in terms of how to recognize or identify.
Okay, that's a good point.
If someone is experiencing, it might even be you. You might be the one experiencing it. So for instance, there's some basic things. We call them intrusive thoughts. It's just a fancy term for, you can be, a lot of times, say for instance, a kid could be sitting in a classroom, and rather than paying attention to what the teacher is teaching, the child is sitting there and their mind goes back to, flashes back to what that event was, what happened to them. They may have nightmares. And so again, they're replaying it over and over in their own mind. You have this level of sensitivity to noise. You have this startled reflex. A lot of times an individual can be what we call hypervigilant. They're always watching. They're watching all the time. Again, when I used to work with kids, you see kids a lot of times, they know where everybody is in the room and what they're doing, you know, and they're always watching who's coming in, who's entering, who's exiting. So they're very, very watchful. Some other things is when you see a poor concentration or lack of concentration, irritability, you may also notice that the person, in addition to all of that watchfulness, there may be a lot of anxiety that's associated with it.
Tell you what, let's cut right here, and we'll come back, and I want you to continue, but we also want to go ahead and get some tips in for our audience. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're talking with Dr. Dez about trauma. Stay tuned for more Smiles. Welcome back. We're back, and we're talking with Dr. Dez. What's on your mind? And we're talking about trauma, the impact of trauma, and how it impacts you and what you can do about it. Don't go away after Dr. Dez, because we have some guests who came into the studio, and it's going to be great. We have a Dr. Khaliq, who deals with all health concerns. Very interesting gentleman, has some wealth of experience and knowledge and information for you. And we also have Ron Gregory, Dick Gregory's brother, and he's going to share with you something about an upcoming tribute to his brother, Dick Gregory, which is going to be at East St. Louis City Hall, 301 River Park Drive, from 5:15 until 8 o'clock. It's going to be a great event. He's also going to do an official unveiling of a limited edition of the Dick Gregory historical calendar. We got a lot in store for you, but let's continue to talk about trauma, Dr. Dez. And you gave some instances of trauma. You talked about how to identify. And I don't know if I cut you off too short, if you wanted to continue in that and then lead into some tips so to help others cope with trauma.
So just a few more things. One of the things that I definitely want to mention is that, again, when you're looking at some of the symptomology of trauma, one, I think, particularly among females, is this feeling of numbness. And the reason that I really want to make sure that I highlight that is because oftentimes that can be associated with a lot of cutters, people who will oftentimes cut. And they are saying, well, you know, that's the only way that I can feel. They need that tangible, you know, sensation, if you will, because they basically emotionally, they're so disconnected from themselves, so they need something. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I had mentioned that that's another one of those symptoms, and really be careful with that with females.
And talk about the care of the patients, and we need to wrap it up just a little bit. Go ahead.
So the care, again, from a psychological perspective, in terms of psychotherapy, right now, one of the big initiatives that's going on is taking a trauma-informed care approach. And one of the things that they're really trying to do is that not only are they just doing it within psychotherapy, but they're utilizing it within schools. So schools are taking a trauma-informed care approach. Your primary care physicians, they're beginning to take a trauma.
And what does that entail?
And so basically what that entails is that you're assessing for trauma. And so you are identifying that this person has a trauma history or a trauma background, and you want to incorporate that. And right.
So there are some real steps that can be done, and we don't have time right now to go through it, but we can end with that, saying that there are some steps that can be taken to help those individuals, and we can carry that on.
And we'll come back.
We'll come back. There's always not enough time for Dr. Dez. Well, now we know what was on Dr. Dez's mind, and remember, trauma can impact you, it can impact our community. Don't go away, because we have Ron Gregory coming up. We have Dr. Khaliq coming up. And I want to make a mention of something. I'm wearing a necklace here that is from Tawanda Story Pieces by Tawanda. Thank you, Tawanda. And she's also having a Black Friday event on November 24th from 6 o'clock in the morning until, I believe it's going on, it's way in the evening, almost 7 o'clock at night. I may not have that end time absolutely correct, but get there early, and they're going to be vendors, Black African-American vendors from all over the metropolitan area. This is a chance to support your own. This is a chance to show that we care about each other. You know, Black Lives Matter. Let's see how much we matter when you come out to this event on November 24th. Stay tuned for more Smiles. Welcome back to the best community affairs program in the Midwest, SMilesTV. I have a special guest. She was not intending to be here, and she showed up, and I have to introduce you to Erica Brooks from Business Plus Photography. Some of you in the community know her, but some of you may not, and you need to get to know Erica. Erica, give me a hug. Hey. No handshake, give me a hug. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
I'm blessed, and thank you for taking time. I know you only have like a minute, and that's fine, but we're going to get some information out of you, because I understand you and I both are co-chairs with Mr. Gregory on this event coming up.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the event.
Well, basically, Mr. Ron Gregory, Dick Gregory's brother, is hosting an event here in East St. Louis, Illinois, and it's a tribute to his brother, Dick Gregory, and also an official unveiling of a limited edition commemorative Black History calendar. Okay. So basically, we're going to have special people that have had relationships with him. We're going to also have video footage of his history, as well as this unveiling of his calendar. And also, the mayor's going to give a proclamation. Mayor Emeka Jackson is going to give Hicks is going to give a proclamation.
Yeah, and you know what? And this is the first time we've actually worked closely together, and I want to thank you for all of your wisdom and insights and helping us to move this right along the way pretty well. And just thank you for popping in. We don't get celebrities like you all the time.
Cut it out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, well, did you want to tell about the time and date and everything else?
Well, you can do that and then lead right into Business Plus because Mr. Gregory's going to come on.
Awesome.
And we don't want to steal all of his thunder.
All right now.
But go ahead.
All right. So my name is Erica M. Brooks, and I'm the owner and operator and photographer, photojournalist for Business Plus Photography. My number is 314-243-2805, and my email address, in case you want to email me, is ERIMON2@yahoo.com.
And Erica is the one who reminded me. I told you the information about the Black Friday. I had that time incorrectly at the top. It's the Black Friday sponsored by Tawanda Story will be from 7 a.m. until 6 o'clock p.m. And that address again, Erica, you had given that to me. I believe it was 8601 California Drive in Caseydale. Black Friday, November 24th, on a Friday, not a Wednesday. Black Friday, November 24th. Come on out and support your own. Erica, thank you. And Erica, are you going to be there?
Where?
At the Black Friday?
Yes, I am. Because guess what? Okay. I don't know if you're talking about this with Dick Gregory. Are you talking about? There's all kind of good stuff happening.
That's right. There's so much going on.
Yes.
Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Exit left. Okay. Stay tuned for more Smiles. We'll be back. I told you we had a jam-packed show, and it's a fun show, and I have another surprise guest, and this guy, he must be very special because he's running around with Ron Gregory, so he must have a lot of patience and a good sense of humor as well. I'm sitting here with Dr. Khaliq, and he deals with all health concerns. I think this is a good segue from Dr. Dez because he deals with all health concerns, mental, spiritual, physical. Did I sum it up? Mr. Khaliq?
Yes,
Dr. Khaliq?
That's what all health concerns is.
Okay, so break that down. How did you get into all health concerns? Who are you?
Well, I'm a basic health practitioner in complementary and alternative medicine. I've been trained and educated in various modalities to address, various health challenges, whether it be heart disease, cancer, and to provide my clients with a complementary and alternative service, which includes modalities that work in harmony with the human physiology. And that's why the wellness practice is called All Health Concerns.
I have to ask, what led you in that direction?
Well, actually, I was, motivated by 3 books when I was 11. I started actually studying, one of the books happened to be Cooking with Mother Nature by Dick Gregory, Jethro Kloss, Back to Eden, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, How to Eat to Live. And I was studying with my grandmother because my grandmother was the gardener. Because I had actually onset juvenile diabetes, but I had never was subjugated by pharmaceutical medicine. It was always home remedies. So as time went on, I after corporate America, after working in radio, I attended school in the International College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in New Mexico.
I see.
Yeah, and from that point, just saw the value in Ayurveda medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, orthomolecular medicine, homeopathy.
You mentioned something earlier when we were talking prior to taping about an individual who had cancer, and they were given a very limited time. And tell our audience that story and how you or the medicine, do you call it medicines?
Well, it's not actual medicine. It is pretty much what I call adjuvant nutritional therapy or complementary nutrition. The first case study was in 2000. A gentleman was referred to me. I had owned a health food store at the time. And this gentleman had stage 4 lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer to be specific, with brain metastasis. And if you look at the meta-analysis, most people don't survive within or beyond a year with cancer that aggressive in that particular region of the body, along with metastasis. And metastasis is when the cancer starts to spread throughout the body. So I had provided the client with a adjuvant nutritional therapy 2 weeks prior to his chemo treatment.
Okay.
And he had a softball-sized tumor in September of 2000. And by February, the softball-sized tumor was gone.
Wow, and these all this is a documented
This
case.
is clearly documented. He continued my protocol, pre-chemo, during chemo, and post-chemo. November 2001, there was no sign of cancer at that time. And the doctors considered him like they couldn't believe it, So he continued the protocol all the way up to 2006 and was declared cured.
Wow.
Okay, and now I'm not saying that this is a actual treatment. There's a combination of things involved when you're doing a lifestyle change, also the will of the patient. And I'm not going to discount chemo because I'm sure that played a key role as well. But what the nutritional therapy does, it builds the resistance from the adverse effects of the treatment, as well as build the immune response, what we call metabolic response modifiers, which is how the body heals itself.
Okay.
And so Mr. Misha was dedicated enough to follow through with the protocol, and 6 years later was declared cured because, after 5 years, they considered the treatment successful. But he was only on chemo for about maybe a year, and he lived almost 17 years. 16
My
years,
goodness,
yeah.
we're gonna, because you're actually in the St. Louis area, you're located. We really want to continue conversations with you, and even maybe come over to where you are and let our audience get a view of more of who you are, more of what you do, and if you can sum up some of your background and history, because just to kind of give them an idea, because we will come back to you again and ask you to be on Smile so we can elaborate, but we're going to have to wrap this up. I just wanted people to get a chance to see some of the variety of things available.
Well, what makes my practice unique is that I had the privilege to meet many pioneers, including Dick, because Dick Gregory was a health guru.
Yes.
Fasting specialist. So I learned a lot from Dick through his writing and his, mentorship, as well as, German physicians, other Asian doctors. I had a great mentor who was a doctor of Oriental medicine in Florida. So pretty much I comprised and consumed all of that to perfect my wellness practice. And that's what I do. I use the best modality. I have a 24,000 professional dispensary products of, like I said, from different persuasions, whether it be traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, homeopathy.
Okay, and if individuals want to make contact with you, how can they do that?
They can go to the website, www.allhealthconcerns.com, or call 888-453-5526. That's a toll-free number to All Health Concerns.
Okay, do me a favor and just say that number one more time, because a lot of times people might want to go get a pencil and write that down. They weren't prepared. So if you will, give your information one more time.
Yeah, All Health Concerns, which is the website. Toll-free number, 888-453-5526.
Thank you so much. And you didn't have to do this. I appreciate your time so very much.
I appreciate you.
And we will be over there as soon as we can, okay?
Okay.
And thank you again, Dr.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ms. Miles.
Okay, don't go here. We got to say, hold on. We got Ron Gregory coming up. Don't go away. Stay tuned for more Smiles.
Okay.
We're back, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Ron Gregory, the brother of Dick Gregory, and we have a few moments, and he's going to share with you what's going on in East St. Louis, Illinois. Mr. Gregory, thank you again.
Oh, hey, I appreciate every time I get an
I
opportunity
just
to come
love
on
your
show.
coming. We might have to just do a segment with you and just carve out a part, and we do that periodically, like we did with Dr. Dez. How about that?
Right.
But tell our audience what's going on in East St. Louis and what's planned.
Well, there's been different groups having tributes to Dick Gregory. And East St. Louis was gracious enough to use the rotunda to have a dedication to the legacy of Dick Gregory on the 29th of November.
Right.
And we're planning to talk about the things that he's done. We have a video that actually depicts his life from the time he was a high school student all the way up until basically the time he died. And it should be very interesting because there's a lot of facets about Dick Gregory's life that people didn't know. You have some people that didn't know he was a comedian. You have people that didn't know he was a health guru. A lot of people in later life just realized he was a political satirist that spoke on all facets of what was going on in the world and conspiracy theories and things like that. So they're going to get a panoramic view of who this individual was.
So the life and legacy of Dick Gregory.
And on top of that, there is a 2018 commemorative Black History calendar dedicated to the life of Dick Gregory. And on that day, after the tribute to him, we're going to have the official East Side unveiling of this document.
You know what, when I first heard that that's what you wanted to do, I thought that was so wonderful for the city of East St. Louis to be chosen to unveil such a historical piece. The history of East St. Louis and the relations that Mr. Gregory had over the years, it spans a long time.
Right.
He was close with Catherine Dunham as well, wasn't he?
He was close with Catherine Dunham. Matter of fact, he was his nutritional guru when she was on her fast, and he was there on a daily basis to make sure that she had everything that she needed, and saw after her while she was doing the fast. And he was also a good friend to the former Mayor Bush.
Mayor Bush,
yeah,
right.
They were real good friends.
Right. And on the program, I know they're gonna be like, we have a guy, we call him Sunshine. And Sunshine was very close to Catherine Dunham, and I understand that he's going to be there as well.
Beautiful. Yeah,
so we're looking for a great night. We're going to have to wrap this up, Mr. Gregory. Is there anything else you want to say before I close out?
No, we're just asking everybody in East St. Louis to come to the Rotunda on the 29th of November and help us pay tribute to one of the great legacies in the championship human rights.
Mr. Gregory, I thank you for coming to Smiles TV talk show, and there's going to be an unveiling of this calendar, a limited edition calendar that is it's all about Dick Gregory. There's some other historical figures in here as well. Wednesday, November 29th, 5:15 until 8 o'clock, East St. Louis City Hall. You want to come out and see the tribute to the life and legacy of Dick Gregory. Thank you again, Mr. Gregory.
Thank you.
That's fun. And that pen, you're gonna leave that pen with me, right?
What pen?
That's on your lapel there.
Oh, that's part of my pacemaker.
Okay.
Yeah, if I take that off, my pacemaker stops.
I want to thank you for tuning into Smiles. Don't forget, come out to this tribute to the life and legacy of Dick Gregory. You want to go see the Black Friday with Tawanda Story on November 24th from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. We want to thank Erica Brooks from Business Plus Photography. And she does that Business Plus with 2 plus signs, plus photography. And Dr. Dez. Dr. Dez, we love her and we thank her for her time. Dr. Khaliq. This man who was on here, who sat in with us, a wonderful gentleman, and you're going to be hearing more from him because we do plan to go back to actually visit his place. Remember, only what you do for Christ will last. Keep smiling. You look better when you smile.